Well, coming back here to the National Results Operations Centre in Midrand in Johannesburg, Canny Maphanga is, of course, on the floor for us. And let's go down there to see who she's got with her, and also just reflecting, as Vanessa did in the Western Cape, on what's on the board here. Canny, good morning.
Well, good morning to you, Sakina, Leanne, and to those viewers at home. Of course, it's the morning after South Africans showed up in their numbers to vote across voting districts or voting stations across the country. Well, we did see that after 9 p.m., even after those voting stations were expected to close, there were those long snaking queues reminiscent of 1994 with South Africans determined to mark their X. Now, if we look at the national scoreboard behind us, we're looking at about 0.94% of those ballots being tallied or counted, which equates rather to just over 46,000 valid votes. So we're looking at the ANC at 24,881 votes, DA at 9,390 votes, EFF at 3,610 votes, the newly formed MK Party with 2,387 votes, then of course Freedom Front Plus with 1,262 votes. Of course, we'll be reflecting with a number of these political parties, their representatives here at the Results Centre as these votes continue to be counted and reflected on that scoreboard. Of course, at this stage, it's very early. These votes can change. The picture can look very different when we speak to you at lunchtime. But however, let's quickly reflect with Freedom Front Plus. Mr. Voter Wessels here, who joins us as we look at that scoreboard, the national one particularly, and what it's telling us this morning. Of course, there's a newly formed formation there just ahead of you as we count those votes this morning. Of course, it still is 0.94%, but it is quite the picture to look at. As you reflect now, is Freedom Front Plus satisfied with what they're seeing so far?
Yes, we're quite satisfied. As you say, it's quite early, and 0.94% of all votes, that's very difficult to really form a picture. And it also depends on which polling stations finished. A lot of small polling stations only finished counting now at 5 a.m. Many larger stations were only, and that's the first process, is just the tally. Then it's being audited and verified and so forth. So we're very far from the big metro polling stations finishing up and really seeing what the picture looks like. But we are satisfied with where we are currently, yes.
Now, this is quite a highly contested election. The IEC is working with, an undercut budget and having to conduct these elections with millions of voters in one day. And we saw the challenges that come with that yesterday. I'm predicting, or is rather the Freedom Front Plus predicting, that the election outcome could be subjected to a number of disputes following that final prediction, which we expect to happen around Sunday.
There were a lot of problems, especially with voters only receiving one ballot paper and being disenfranchised in that fashion. And we'll have to have a look at what effect that will have and has when we see the result more complete and can see the picture. Because then you can see if there's a significant discrepancy between the regional votes and the national votes, and if it would make a difference, if it's on a knife's edge. And I think if we look at the results now, we can already see that the result will be on a knife's edge, and that all those problems that occurred will have and might have a substantial influence.
Any significant concerns from your party agents on the ground that could inform that kind of a legal dispute in these 2024 polls?
We have many instances of electorate just not being able to vote. They were correctly registered, they have proof thereof, they checked their registration status with registration weekend, and all of a sudden they registered in places that they've never lived, never registered at, and that's very strange. And then the system saying a person is only eligible to vote on one place. Those people were turned away. They couldn't vote on all their ballots. So we are concerned, and our party agents picked that up. But once again, South Africans were vigilant. They stood in those queues. Although it took very long, unnecessarily long, they were excited to vote. And I do trust that their vote will count.
Thank you very much. That was voter vessels of the Freedom Front Plus, just reflecting on the lengthy day of voting yesterday and some of the challenges that the IEC had experienced. It's still early days, as I stated, Sakina. We'll continue to monitor those scoreboards. Very interesting things happening on the national scoreboard, but of course in KwaZulu-Natal and Mpumalanga as well, where we'll catch up with the newly formed Umkhonto weSizwe Party later to reflect on those results. But as those results start to come in, SABC News will be on the ground to give you those figures and what they're telling us about the 2024 national and provincial elections. Over to you in studio.
Well, thank you so much, Canny. Canny, of course, not far from us here on the floor behind us. And as we had promised, we're going to bring you up to speed with what's happening at the various provincial results operation centers. And that gives you, of course, a clearer picture of what's happening with the provincial ballot and the votes that were cast.